All right, it's always fun to talk to the 2003 National Championship quarterback, and without a doubt, the best LSU orthodontist in the country, Matt Mauck. Matt, how you doing, man?
Doing really good. How about you?
Doing great, man. The sun is shining a little more bright in Baton Rouge today,
Yeah.
and you were there. LSU beats Alabama on perhaps the gutsiest call in LSU history.
Well, I think it was the right call. People are. I think it obviously took guts, but what I loved about it, even if we wouldn't have made it, was that I think Brian Kelly was sending a message that, hey, I'm changing things. The culture it's been the last 2 years is not what it's going to be, and I believe in these players. I believe in this program, and I want everyone's mentality to change. So I think it's great that we made it, but even if we didn't, I love the call, just from a program changer type thing.
Yeah, he is so ahead of schedule, in terms of taking this program over. And to think, Matt, we are actually talking about LSU with a chance to win the SEC West this weekend if things fall in line, and being in the SEC championship game. I can't get into the playoff talk yet, Matt. It's almost hard for me to believe from that aspect, but wow, what they're playing for after the team we saw against Florida State and Tennessee.
I think the one thing I was kind of shocked about is how early on LSU fans, I think, were expecting a little too much, and he was implementing the right systems and what he wanted to put in place. And when you change an offense, a defense, just a culture, even the littlest things. Tommy Moffitt, who did an unbelievable job and was fantastic for a long period of time. When you change who the off-season coach is and how it just takes a while. All that stuff takes a little bit, and so I wasn't shocked early on that they struggled a little bit. I am a little shocked at how good they are playing right now. And to Coach Kelly and his other coaches' credit, they really got the players to buy in, and everyone seems to be, full steam ahead.
Let's talk more about this LSU Alabama game. So, for Jaden Daniels to run into the end zone there in overtime, and just imagine yourself being a quarterback, and in that moment, we're getting the play, we're going for it. We're going for it, and you got one play to win the game, and to not think about it too much, right? If this pass gets tipped, if I throw it wrong, 3.5 hours or whatever it is of banging heads with these guys, and if I don't get this right, we lose. That's a lot.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised. I mean, honestly, if you go back to the film, at least because I was watching him as he went to the end zone, Daniels turned around and he looked like, let's go for two. You know what I mean? That was kind of the mentality. Where I thought the gutsy call came is when Alabama calls timeout for Brian Kelly to stick with it. That's the part. Because I thought going for two was the right call. As soon as they called timeout, to your point, now you got to think about it. Now it sinks in. I thought when they called timeout, he may go ahead and kick the extra point, but I love that he stuck with it.
Yeah, and these young kids, I don't call them kids, but these young men, Jaden Daniels, he didn't grow up on all this LSU Alabama stuff and the whole Nick Saban thing and all that. And Mason Taylor, the son of Jason, I asked him after the game, how do you not think about the enormity of that pass coming your way? And he just said, well, we run it every day in practice. Why not catch it in the game? And so maybe to an extent, they just don't know any better.
Yeah, people ask me that question all the time. Like, God, how did you play in that? Honestly, when you're out there on the field, you're so focused on what you're doing, and probably the fear of messing up, that you forget what's actually going on. So what he says is not surprising at all. It's just as you're in the midst of it, you don't realize what's going on until afterwards.
Just his progression, Jaden Daniels, and the fact that whether it was a competition or not, from spring all the way to the first game, we heard it's a close race. We're not sure who the quarterback is, this and that. I don't know if that was just political or whatever, but it's clear who the quarterback is. And the progress he has made for him to go to the Swamp, to play Ole Miss at home, and now this game, I don't think he's turned the ball over in those 3 games. And just from his passing to his running, LSU isn't where they are, obviously, without Jaden Daniels.
Without a doubt, and I think more than any, I mean, I think Jaden played great, but I give the offense coordinator and Coach Kelly credit. To me, it looks like they early on said, "Hey, this is what we're trying to do," and then found out very quickly, "Hey, this is not what he does well. Let's adapt what we want to do to what he does." And that sounds so simple, but there's so many coaches that don't do that and won't do that. And so I give a ton of credit to the offensive coaching staff for doing that. And I think Jaden gets all that credit and he deserves it. But I think to me, the biggest difference has been our defense. I mean, our defense is atrocious the last couple of years. I mean, that has been, I mean, that's what LSU is known for, is having athletes and being able to throw a great defense out there. And I think Coach House has done a tremendous job in taking the exact same play, well, not the exact same players, but a lot of the same players, and putting them in position to have success.
Yeah, great point. Some people may look at the final score and see 32-31 and kind of view it as somewhat of a shootout, but that really wasn't the case because LSU's offense kind of wasted some field position in the first half and didn't capitalize, and the LSU defense kept them in this thing for 3 quarters, really.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the score is 32-31. It's a lot, but I said the reason the game was so good is it wasn't, big turnover or mistake. It's just everybody played well, both offense, defense, both teams. And it was truly a slugfest.
Yeah, and that was the big question, Matt, going into the game. Can LSU play with him? Like, people would stop me at the gym or, people would want to talk about this game. You think we got a shot? You think we got a shot? And it was clear through the first 2 quarters that Alabama was not on a different level than LSU. It wasn't going to be like, oh, we need 4 turnovers or, need to block a punt or do something. I mean, LSU played these guys straight up and they won the game.
Oh, without a doubt. I think that the interception in the first quarter was in my opinion, they score right there, that game could be totally different, and I think from the talent from the starting standpoint is not that much different. I think where Alabama's ahead of us is somebody gets hurt, the guy that's coming in next. And I think that's what Coach Kelly's trying to do is to get our depth better moving forward.
Some things on this LSU team. I interviewed Andrew Whitworth last week. I interviewed Alan Faneca last week. I would guess 2 of the greatest offensive linemen in LSU history, obviously. Neither of those 2 guys played as true freshmen. And to have Will Campbell and Emory Jones thrown out there as tackles on the edge and dealing with these, incredible players from Alabama. Can you even put that into words?
I mean, Will Anderson he looks like Javon Curse out there. I mean, he is a stud. And how many times did you really hear his name? Not very many. So, yeah, I think people don't give that enough credit. I mean, that is unprecedented, really. I mean, I can't imagine another team that has started 2 freshmen at tackle and are ranked in the top 15 in the country or top 10 in the country.
Yeah. I saw Brad Davis, LSU's offensive line coach, in passing, walking past him, and I said the same thing. I said, didn't seem like Will Anderson's name was called a whole lot. And he goes, oh, he was out there, trust me. It never leaves his head, worrying about that guy, for sure. Yeah. What do you make of this Josh Williams? This guy's got to be one of the great stories on the team, right? I know his family's they're a little sensitive about the walk-on tag and everything. They feel like he could have been a scholarship player at other schools, but he was a walk-on at LSU. He earned a scholarship. But this guy's perpetual motion, whether he's running, catching, blocking, I mean, he's everywhere.
Without a doubt. I think that I had this conversation with someone the other day that, people and fans love to hear, oh, we were in the top 5 in recruiting, we were this and this. And it's great to have some 5-star players, but honestly, in my opinion, the 3-star guys, the Jordan Jeffersons, the Chad Lavallées, the Matt Maucks, guys that weren't these, parade All-Americans are the backbone of your team. And a lot of times the guys that are more hungry and have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. To me, I think you're seeing it at Texas A&M. I love Jimbo Fisher to death, but sometimes you get too many 5-star guys. There's only one football, and it's hard to keep everybody happy.
And to your point there, 5-star, John Emery came in with a lot of expectations. A lot of people thinking he was going to fall right in line with Leonard Fournette and Darius Geis and all these guys. It's been a struggle. It's 2 coaching staffs. It's 4 years. He hasn't been able to stay on the field consistently as a starter. But I felt like that game he played against Alabama the other night was his best game as a Tiger. And that touchdown in the first half where he catches out of the backfield, makes the cutback and scores was his top touchdown as a Tiger. He was big for them.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah. And to his credit, I think there's a lot of 5-star guys that don't have the success and they become a problem. He doesn't seem like that. He seems like he's kept working and he's willing to do whatever it takes to get himself on the field.
You mentioned defense. Harold Perkins is a guy that everyone has been talking about since camp, really. And it's a thing of, well, does he know where to be? His assignments. We don't want to bust, but obviously, there was one point, Matt, where Bryce Young gets tackled. He goes down, and he almost is like spiking the ball simultaneously in frustration. Get this Harold Perkins away from me, because he was such an impact in the game.
Without a doubt, it was almost, and I don't know exactly what scheme, but it seemed like they were almost kind of using him to spy a little bit on what was going on several plays. And Bryce Young's a pretty good player, and Perkins was all over him all night. So. Again, some of the players that they've recruited and have in here, future's bright for LSU football.
You're not an LSU historian, so to speak, and I don't want us to get caught up in the moment, but after this game, people are talking about, and I felt like when I left, I said, that's got to be one of the greatest games I've ever seen in that stadium. Now, if it's top 10, top 5, a lot of people are putting their list down of stuff. I mean, we can't go back to 1959 and Billy Cannon run and all that. Let's just say, I don't know, last 40 years since 1980, that LSU Georgia game that you played in has been in a lot of people's either top 5 or top 10 and this and that. You got any feel or where would you put this game and how does it compare and any of that stuff?
Yeah, off the top of my head, just the earthquake game, that game against Georgia, the Hester running over the Florida guy in 2000, and this game. I mean, I think all those, I think a lot of times how good the game is part of what's the moment that's there. And I think for me, like the one I played in that Georgia game, not that maybe that was the prettiest game or anything like that, but it really changed LSU football. That, hey, we can compete with anybody, made our players believe in it. And I think the reason this game is so special is just what I said. Brian Kelly was able to say, hey, guys, this is what we're going to be about. We're going to go for it, and we're going to go win games. We're not going to sit here and wait and hope another team messes up. No, we're the one that's going to set the tone and do things the way we want. So I think, whether it's, there's debatable which is the greatest game, but I think this has got to be one of the best games for where our program's at and where we want to get to.
Yeah. And that Georgia game didn't go to overtime, but similar to this game, it was the back and forth late. It was could have been a deflator for LSU when Bryce Young somehow escapes the pocket and throws a touchdown. That could have been, here we go again. Alabama's going to rip our heart out. Similar to it was a little screenplay for 80 yards against you guys, right?
Yeah.
Before you threw the touchdown to Skylar.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think this is it's way too hard. The Halloween game or whatever that was with Billy Cannon run. It's so hard to determine, what that is. But this definitely goes down as one of the greatest games in LSU history.
It's like somebody asking me my favorite Van Halen song. I mean, how am I supposed to narrow this down? So there's so many. And when Brian Kelly talks, Matt, I feel like it's a lot of the same message that we heard to you and the LSU team, roughly 20 years ago. The whole process is mentioned a lot, not making one game bigger than the other. LSU put out a clip of him talking to the team where he says, I hear around here that the Alabama week, everyone raises up their level of play and all that. That's BS, he tells them. And I think a lot of the message is the same. Just it's kind of delivered a little differently.
Without a doubt, I got a chance to meet Coach Kelly when I was in, and very impressed. But like I said, Scott Woodward's one of my closest friends, and I told everybody this when he was in charge, he was going to get the right guy. And Scott was around Nick Saban enough; he knew what he was looking for. And I think, the one thing I think Coach Kelly, sometimes his perception when he was at Notre Dame, when he was on camera during the games, was that he was a hothead or arrogant or whatever it might be. I the exact opposite impression when you meet him in person, and what that is. And I think even now that he's at LSU, he just seems happier, calmer. I mean, he looks different on the sidelines, honestly, than what he did at Notre Dame. So I think it's a perfect fit, and I love the way the direction the program is going. And I think LSU fans should be very excited about the future.
Yeah, he's lost a little weight. He's dressing nicer. Yeah, a little more GQ than he was up there when he's in those coats.
Dancing still hasn't gotten better, but that's.
I wish I would have grabbed my phone and shot it, Matt, as LSU's won the game and all these kids are shooting onto the field, all these people, which I would equate to human missiles flying past you. You're just hoping that one doesn't, tag your battleship, so to speak. But
Yeah.
I saw Woodward, and he just kind of walked into a locker room with his hands in his pocket, stone-faced, like, he was going for an afternoon walk on Sunday or something. It was just I had to be thinking on the inside, though, he must have been feeling, we got our guy,
Yeah. Well, I think Scott's never wavered. This whole process, he's felt extremely confident about who he hired and the job that he was going to do. So I think this is. I don't know if he needs validation, but I think he just kind of expected it.
Yeah. And a couple things before we talk about this next game, and I don't want to be a hypocrite because I even interviewed Danny Werfel before the LSU Florida game, and we both said, okay, no matter who wins this game, this is not going to be a LSU got the better coach or Florida got the better coach or this or that. But at this point right now, you would have to say that every LSU team moving forward with Brian Kelly is going to be better than this one. I would think that's what you would think with recruiting. And there's some teams around the league that's got some problems right now. Auburn, Texas A&M, Florida, they're doing okay, but LSU's in a great spot.
Without a doubt, I was a big Billy Napier fan, and Rob Sales, one of my closest friends. He's the offensive coordinator there. I think, honestly, I think those are my two choices because I thought that was the best option. So I think both those teams got great coaches. It seems Brian Kelly is the perfect fit at LSU, and honestly, Billy Napier may be the perfect fit at Florida. I think Jaden Daniels is the X factor a little bit, that we got a little more polished quarterback to begin with. And as you know, as a former quarterback, I think sometimes we get too much credit. But if you have a quarterback that is confident, is a leader, it makes such a difference in college football. I mean, such a difference.
Okay, now's the big challenge: handling success. Right? How do you handle success? How do you show your maturity? That one of those podcasts, One Team, One Podcast, they put up their top 10 games in Tiger Stadium history, and I looked at them and I said, at least half of those games LSU lost the next week. After the biggest wins ever, they lost the next week. Not to be a Debbie Downer, that all has nothing to do with Brian Kelly. That's all before Brian Kelly got here, but. That's the challenge, right? It's going to be chilly. It's going to be like 30, 40 degrees. It's not the glamour of Alabama. So how do they respond, right?
Yeah. And it's a good team. I think that's they had a bad loss last week, but that's a good team that they're facing. So I think it'll be, I think this comes down to Brian Kelly. And I think his message doesn't have to change. He's had the same message all year long, that one game at a time. And much like Nick Saban, I think if you look back, Nick Saban doesn't lose a whole lot of games after a big win because he stays focused. And I will tell you, if Brian Kelly's like Nick Saban, I wouldn't want to be at practice this week because you're going to work your tail off and making sure you stay hungry with that.
Whitworth last week, he said after you guys won the national championship, he said Saban said something like, you guys can stick those rings where the sun don't shine or something like that. So there's always the eyes are always here, never here with him.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think all the great coaches have that. They're never satisfied.
What do you make, real quick, of and look, I've learned, I think, Matt, over the years, it's better to take a deep breath and not get caught up in hot takes or whatnot. Look, Alabama lost 2 games this year, one on a ball that was deflected at the line and barely made it over the crossbar, and one on a 2-point conversion in overtime here. Both times the fans rushed the field. But do you think that Nick Saban, some things are catching up to him? You think he makes some offseason moves to get back in the race, or how do you feel about him at 71 years old now?
No, I think this is a little bit of a problem in college football. I equate it's kind of like the problem in the stock market. Okay, did all of a sudden Coca-Cola become a bad company? No, because if you had your record year in 2021, well, if you have the exact same year in 2022, that's still probably your second best year ever. Does that all of a sudden mean you're bad? No, it doesn't mean you're bad. And I think that's the problem in college football is unreal expectations. And Alabama's a good football team. I mean, really good football team. And so to think that Nick Saban needs to do something different, no. I mean, and I think that what makes college football great is this huge momentum shifts, and it's what makes it different than the NFL. But it also what makes it worse than the NFL. That 1 week we can think we're the greatest team ever, and the next week, we can be whatever it is, 6-2, and everyone thinks we're, Colorado State, who's one win. No, not at all. Alabama's a good football team, and if they win the rest of their games, go to a good bowl game, that's still a really good season. And come back next year, and I think sometimes, yeah, everyone would like to be LSU, what we were for a little while and what Alabama has been. And every single year you're competing for the national championship. But that's just the reality is that's just not going to happen for every team. And so I think sometimes I always take the model of Iowa. All right. Kirk Ferentz, he's a great coach, but Iowa has also come to the realization that 8-9 wins is not a bad season. That's a good season. And then every once in a while, hopefully we get to get 10, 11, 12 wins, and so, and not that we're Iowa, trust me, that's not what I'm comparing ourselves to, but right. I think people need to have a realistic expectation that if you have a coach that wins 10 games every year, that's pretty darn good. And I think, talk to Nebraska, I bet they'd take Bo Pelini back at this point.
Yeah. And to Nick Saban's credit, I think that even before the playoffs started, he said he was a fan of bowl games and he was worried about the playoff hurting the bowls. And that, without a doubt, has happened. It used to be people were excited about playing for their 10th win of the year and going to Florida and the Citrus Bowl or, one of those nice bowls. And now it's like people turning their nose up at stuff, oh, wow, I don't want to play in that, or I don't want to go to that as a fan. So I do think that's hurt the game a little bit. But,
yeah, no, for sure, without a doubt. I think hurt it when you had to let a committee decide who the champion was, but it also, like you said, the Rose Bowl used to be. I mean, if you were a Big Ten or a Pac-12 team, oh my God, that was. Almost sometimes they'd rather have that than, win a national championship. Oh man, we still got a Rose Bowl. That type of thing. Where now a lot of the players have no idea what affiliation goes to which bowl, which conference goes to which bowl.
One interesting thing, LSU really apparently wants to win this golden boot back against Arkansas. And in the past, it's kind of been a joke. It was kind of a joke when you played, right? Wasn't it like the bench warmers? Yeah, y'all go get that thing. Go pick it up.
I think that when Houston, that was there when I was there, it did towards the end. It kind of became a bigger deal. Okay. But no, not. I mean, when I was there, Auburn was our big rival, or now Alabama being LSU's big rival. So I think the boot has lost a little luster, but I think it's still a big deal to Arkansas.
I'm always taken back when we go up there, Matt, because we watch the local news in Arkansas, and they'll be saying, it's the biggest game of the year. It's the biggest home game of the year. We love that boot. And it's kind of hard for LSU to punch back in that regard because it's never really – LSU has never felt that way about Arkansas, So.
Without a doubt. But I will tell you, that's a tough place to play, and their fans are great fans. And for whatever reason, historically, we haven't always played great.
All right, I'll end with this. We had a chance to interview Tommy Karam last week.
Oh, man.
And Darren DeQuano, the photographer, put him on the spot and said, who did a great job with interviews? Who was a guy that really got it when you coached him up? And he goes, he thought about it for a second. Matt Mauck. I tell you, Matt Mauck, every time he went out there, he did a good job of representing our school and saying the right thing. And, as we won the national championship and he won the faces of the team. So there you go. Tommy Karam all these years later. Remember.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he and I had breakfast on Sunday. So I'm going to, if I just buy him breakfast, he says nice things about me. This works out good.
I should have told you before, right? You would have paid or whatever.
Yeah, there you go.
I was saving it as a surprise for you here. But we joke about it too. It's like, man, can you imagine if they stuck a microphone in front of my face when I was 18, 19 years old, the stuff I would have said, and we got people that are twice as old, like critiquing these kids. Oh, he sounded immature or that, he's not it's like, come on, man.
Yeah, I will tell you, Tommy Karam, he's always been a close friend, but does a tremendous job working with Michael Bonnet and getting players to understand that how they come across sets them up for life. I mean, I think that's the one thing that I always tell recruits when anyone asks me is LSU is wonderful, but the staff that is around and people like yourself, you know what I mean? The media, the people that are around LSU love LSU and care about LSU. And in my opinion, what makes it a little more special than other places.
We were joking about it. I think we had talked and said that Jay Cutler was like voted like most disliked player in the NFL or something. And it was all about this, his face. People look at him and they just came to a conclusion by looking at his face,
Yeah, without a doubt. How you position it. I mean, I think it's in my field now in dentistry, they always tell you even when you sit down with a patient, make sure you're eye level. If you're above them, they're going to feel intimidated. It's just these little things that make a huge difference in life. My kid guy, I took my 12-year-old with me to the game, and of course, it gets a little boring. Everybody's kind of coming up talking to me, and then they want to touch him. And we just went round and round. I'm like, but you got to look them in the eye and you're going to ask them one question about themselves. And he was like, oh, you get so tired of hearing me. But then at the end, I had like 3 people come up and be like, man, your son is so nice. He says such this stuff. And I was like, see? And he's like, oh, whatever.
Right. Well, he was such a departure. Every other kid's like this, they're staring at their phone or, don't have social skills. So that's great. Awesome, man. Well, look, appreciate your insight, and hopefully we're talking to you before an SEC championship game soon.
All right, Jack. Always good at talking to you.